Advertising agencies are now fascinated with the idea of content. Production companies are now having to think about things like product placement in ways they may not have done before. The division between the two disciplines seems to have got increasingly blurred. How do you think it's changing in practice?
Well, it is changing and it's not changing. Because you're right, boundaries have merged, and you've had, for instance, some agencies setting up groups to have content creation divisions, ad-supported programming, that sort of stuff. Very much at the fringe, though, actually. And you've had some production companies thinking that they might get into creative agency work. Again, at the fringes. But the no bit of it is that the mindset of marketing a product is quite different from wanting to create a piece of entertainment. And even more, and this may sound trivial, but actually it's profound, the sort of 30-second mindset versus the 30-minute mindset is actually, you know, if you go out of college and go into advertising, you think in small, soundbitey thoughts and impressions. And if you go into telly, you sort of think of how can I get somebody's attention for 30 minutes? And actually that's a profound difference between those two things. And I've often been pitched by people from the advertising world saying, wouldn't this be a great TV format? And it's usually something that would sustain my interest for 20 seconds. Probably very well, but wouldn't make a TV show. So there's a different mindset too.
What do you think advertising and television have to learn from each other?
I think television has a huge amount to learn from advertising, and I've thought that for about 15 years. Television people always went around saying, we're in a creative business, as people in advertising like to do. And this huge veneration of the word creativity. But there are different sorts of creativity, and in television, there are people who like to say, hey, that's amazing, let's turn the camera upside down, or, oh, the set ought to be pink, not blue. So that is a sort of creativity. The creativity that interested me was the sort of people who can work with a blank sheet of paper and invent a brilliant idea from scratch that becomes a great TV show, might be a great ad campaign, that runs for a long time, enters the national consciousness and all the rest of it. In other words, it's not the execution of the idea, it's the origination of the idea. And in television, there were producers and directors and editors and so on and so forth, but there weren't people really organised for creativity, organised to come up with these ideas for what we now know as television formats. And so I decided we had to steal the clothes of the ad industry. And I announced that my job title from 1998 it was, I think, is creative director. And I was the first person to call himself creative director in television. It was a massive piece of vanity and a bit of marketing besides to say we're the creative company, come to us. And actually, within about 3 years, there were 20 creative people calling themselves creative director in the BBC alone. So it took off like wildfire in the TV industry. But it had a serious point to it, which was that within our company, we then started to organise it around formal briefs from broadcasters, which were given to formal creative teams of 3 or 4 people who were cast for that idea to brainstorm it, to come back with an idea on a deadline. Up to then, people simply sat around in their baths and hoped they'd come up with ideas. So it seemed to me we had a lot to learn from the disciplines of the advertising industry.
To what extent do you think that people want to interact with their television sets, and to what extent do you think they want to just sit back and watch them?
Well, of course, I need to quote Riepel's law to you. You know who Professor Riepel is?
Tell me.
You don't know who he is?
I don't know.
Shocking. Absolutely shocking. Professor Riepel, German law, a German professor of economics, 1913, came up with his law of innovation in media. Loosely stated, innovations in media tend to add to what went before rather than replace it. So it's, if you like, the car and the train, not the car and the horse.
Indeed.
And it stands up, you know.
So television didn't replace cinema, and so it goes on.
Exactly. And when it comes to interactivity on television, it isn't that all programmes suddenly become interactive and everybody has to choose the next plot in EastEnders, which is ridiculous. It's another aspect to it. Or whether it's, and the most significant thing about interactivity with televisions is the second screen. And that's what all of us, either in television or advertising, have got to get our brains around. Yeah. So that it enables us to enjoy, comment on programmes with our friends, form a community around a programme as a programme's going on. That's sort of interactivity that's significant.
Yeah.
And it's certainly the source of much valuable data that television stations have yet to pick up on. I met a guy who works for Universal McCann in New York the other day, and he is buying slots on NBC and CBS at below their market value because he's collecting all the data of who is on Twitter and Facebook commenting on TV shows. He knows exactly which segments of the population those shows are reaching, and he knows the real value of them. And the TV companies don't. So he's buying slots. So the TV companies have got to get on top of all this second script. So it has immense significance financially, and the data collection and all the rest of it. And it's here to stay. It doesn't necessarily alter the skill of a storyteller who creates a brilliant drama for an hour, and which you sit and enjoy.
You got quite a lot of stick for some of the innovations that you were responsible for. And I remember reading when you were appointed chairman of the Arts Council, you got quite a drubbing from titles like the Daily Mail that called you a brutal populist and accused you of introducing lowest common denominator television, etc. How do you feel about that?
I feel very calm. Yes, I have produced popular television, and yes, I'm very proud of it. And if you're going to be accused of being a brutal populist, in terms of kettles and pots being black, the accusation is probably better coming from a non-mass market media product heavily criticised in the Leveson report.
Indeed. There was, of course, another angle to this as well. So, as well as referencing the popular television that you were responsible for, when you were appointed to be chairman of the Arts Council, it struck me that there was a huge amount of snobbery as well in some of the opinions being espoused at the time, criticising someone coming from the world of popular television, becoming chairman of the Arts Council. Somehow there was a contradiction. Is there a contradiction in your mind?
Well, no, there's no contradiction. And anyway, I wasn't coming from the world of television to work in the world of arts, because I've been working in the world of arts and museums for 20 years. I've been chair of the English National Opera. I have been chair of a steam museum, which we raised money for in southeast London. And so I've been active in the arts as well as in television for a long time. And is it strange that somebody who works in television is active in the arts? Is it strange that anybody in advertising would go to the theatre? No, none of these things are strange. Some people refer to this as no-brow as opposed to high-brow, low-brow, but you know, I hate all those categories. I think you can enjoy popular television and make it and enjoy and be an enthusiast for the arts. I don't think there's any clash.
We've spoken about how advertising is changing, and we've talked about the impact of advertising and on programming and vice versa. But of course, there are also changes afoot that talk to the role of advertising in programming, for example, product placement. And I know that that's a topic that you've been thinking about recently.
Yes, I've been chair for the last 3 years of a company called Myriad, which has a wonderful piece of British technology for virtual brand placement in programming, so that you don't put the Coca-Cola bottle on the table, you put it in virtually afterwards. And that makes the whole thing scalable, demonstrable to media buyers, and measurable. And it's clear that brands want to get closer to content. It's clear that the ad break is fraying at the edges, but remember Riepel's law, it's not going to disappear, it's just more and lots of other stuff's going to come along as well. And so product placement is one of those ways, but even in the world where it's been legal for years, like Australia, America, South America, it's been done physically, and physically it's clunky, either because it's not done in a way that is the brand likes and can't be adjusted after it's shot, or because you can't show a brand what the proposition is because you're going to shoot it in 6 months' time or whatever it happens to be. So that is just one of the ways, along with sponsorship, along with shared screen, split screen ads and so on. It's one of the ways that brands are going to get closer to content, and they clearly are going to want to do that.
In an interview you gave some time ago, apparently you said you have a tendency to nod off in meetings. I have Japanese clients for whom apparently this is a great compliment. If you nod off in a meeting, it's a sign of great confidence. in the content of the meeting that you can take some time out. Is that why you nod off in meetings?
No. About 10 years ago, I found that I was getting rather sleepy about 2:30 in meetings, and particularly when people were speaking in a monotone. And actually, it's because I always used to eat a sandwich and rather too fast at lunchtime. And if you eat carbohydrates quickly at lunchtime, particularly after you're 50, it just puts you to sleep in the afternoon. So now I am a salad or sushi eater at lunchtime, and I no longer nod off in meetings. I just want to make that clear. In fact, I want you to look into my eyes now and witness the fact that I am awake.
You are awake, but it's not 2:30 in the afternoon. I have to say, though, do you not get hungry eating a salad at lunchtime?
Yes, but being hungry makes you more alert.
More alert. There you go. There's a career secret for those watching.